And my soul fractal originated on the planet Dakota in the Tegeta star system in the Pleiades.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I feel really blessed that there are a lot of people who go out and who go around speaking about the Pleiades, and it's a place of love and higher dimensional Pleiadian beings. I'm from the Pleiades, but not only that, I know which star system and which planet, and I know what that planet looks like and what the continents are like. The fact that it's pretty much all Mediterranean looking with palm trees and lots of water and large islands. Great place. Great place to spend time. Yeah.
Okay, that's so interesting, because what's coming to mind now is a quantum healing hypnosis therapy session I had, and in one of the off-world experiences I had, there were some palm trees, there were oceans, and I didn't know exactly where I was, but I was off-world. So who knows?
Great. You could have been visiting. Yeah.
I could have been visiting. Yeah. I don't know.
It's a planet that has 9 continents, and just like Australia, those 9 continents are essentially large islands. So you have Katrina and 8 others, and they are individual continents that are individual countries surrounded by this massive, so there's water everywhere. You know, it's like ocean, and a total of 9 continents all over the place. And,
wow. So, okay, people like in my audience, some are familiar with these things, others may not be so familiar. So let's talk about how you found out about these things and all of that. But before we get to that,
sure,
let's go back into like August 1993, where you had this contact, and then you were with this partner, so to speak, and you guys went back and you time traveled into the 1840s. And then from there, you found out you had been contacted since the age of 5 more than 100 times. And then you just start learning. It was almost like an information dump, I'm sure.
Yeah, there were a whole bunch of information dumps. Yeah, there were quite a few of them.
Yeah, so take us back to all that. Take us through your journey.
Sure. I've told this story so many times, but not recently. And so what I'm going to try to do is tell the story at least a little differently.
Okay.
I was living in Tucson at the time, so I'm going to back up a moment. I'm at least on this planet in this lifetime. I'm a child of New England. I was born and raised in the Northeast, educated there. During those days, I was a kid of the 60s and the 70s. Pretty standard family, mom and dad who had a great life. There were 4 of us in the family. I happened to be the oldest. Leo born.
Got that in common too.
Yes, we talked about that. Yeah. But in any case, after traveling the Northeast and the whole country considerably during the 1980s, I remembered an experience when Dad had closed his practice for the summer of '69, and we traveled the whole country. And I also remember a number of instances, but one specifically where Mom had said, "Come on, we're here in the Four Corners country." And not only that, but we were at the Four Corners when you could still sort of like drive through it and pull off. And she said, "Come over here." And I was being a bratty 10-year-old. I'm like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah." She goes, no, how many times how many people have the opportunity to come and stand at the crossroads of 4 states in the Southwest? And I'm looking up at the same sky that I can see today, which is absolutely brilliant blue, clean air. That's true of today.
Yes.
And I'm looking around, and as a child of New England, everything is beautiful and it's green and the ocean is close by, but you've got trees, which are predominantly maples and oaks and beech and ash, and they create this artificial sort of canopy and ceiling, and we can't see anything. So there I am in the Southwest going, wow, this is amazing. Someday, when I get older and I can make some different choices, I'm going to move to the Southwest. And I did that in the winter of 1991. After a lot of traveling all throughout the 80s and working, I purposefully chose Tucson. Phoenix to me was just a big asphalt city with way too many people and streets and cars plopped in the desert. But Tucson has and still has the University of Arizona, a school full of culture and theater and the arts, and with Tucson, it's set up like a rectangle, and you've got mountain ranges at all four corners: northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. So the air is constantly getting cleaned out, and you can get from one side of town to the other in about half an hour. You can't do anything in Phoenix in half an hour. So the guy I met with was just a tall, bald, intelligent, jovial Irishman, and he needed somebody as part of his emerging healthcare practice, as I was still in the software industry in those days. And so I'm like, Pat, I think his name was Pat Boyle, actually. I said, Pat, I'd work for you anywhere, but I'm glad you're in Tucson, so sure. So I had other offers from Phoenix, but I accepted that offer. There are all sorts of incremental stories, but suffice it to say that, like you, I'm very vivid in living color, panoramic dreamer, always have been. And I was deep asleep August of '93. And at that time, I was in a condo up against the Catalina Mountains. I'd been there for, 2 3/4 years and was in a great place. They hadn't done a lot of building there yet, so I was 14 miles outside of town, north of the city. And when I'd go for walks in the desert, I could just hear what I called the hum of life. You could hear like the rabbits walking, or the deer, or the javelina. You could actually hear the sounds. And you live in the Southwest, so you understand this. You can hear the sounds of the insects out in the panorama of the skies. Just incredible. So I'm in a really good place, and I'm sleeping one night. It's, I think, 2:34, 2:40, 3:40, something like that. And I'm hearing this voice. The words we would use today are mind speak or telepathically. I'm hearing this voice telepathically. It's like, hey, get up. I'm like, get up. He goes, now, I'll tell you, and I've told this story before, and I'll tell it quite honestly. It didn't bother me because I recognized the voice. You remember when you were in school, you have really good friends, and you may not talk to that friend for 2 or 3 years or even 11 years, but one afternoon she may pick up the phone and call you and go, Jodi, how you doing? It's Kathy, right? Yeah. That kind of scenario. So I knew the voice. I knew the energy of the voice. And he's like, listen, it's time. I'm like, what do you mean it's time? He's like, I need your help. You need to come meet me. We got some work to do. I'm like, do you know what time it is? He's like, yeah, I know what time it is. And you got to get going. And he said, you need to get going because the clock's ticking, and I need you to get in your car, head down I-10 and exit for the San Javier mission. You need to take that exit in the first dirt desert road you see. He said, it won't be marked, but you'll recognize it. Pull off there, and I'll be like 1/4 to 1/3 of the mile in the desert. All right, fine.
Were you thinking like, I'm actually going to do this? Wow.
Yeah, and
did you question it?
No, I didn't, because I recognized and I trusted the source. I knew this voice much like I knew a college buddy or a long time friend. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've ever revealed this before, but I will reveal this. I later learned after many years, back actually in September of 10, I learned that he's not only the commander, the guy that's responsible for the Primary Andromeda Council Biosphere and all the other 11 biospheres. When we were back on the planet Dakota growing up, this guy's my older brother.
Wow.
By 2 years. So essentially there were 3 of us. Him, and as an example, him at 17, I would be 15, and the woman that we know as Adana of Star Ancestry, she was our little sister at like age 11.
Oh my goodness.
So we're all from the planet Dakota. And I now have a chart, 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, of a number of people that I have met that are here on Earth from Dakota, that are either friends or first and second cousins, that are all on planet. And this story is worth telling because it has a greater global purpose. Most people don't understand and realize that if they're having contact of any type and they're having perpetual continued contact, it's most likely people they know or their family members from their home planet, from where they're from, that are coming to visit them, because there's a sense of knowing, a sense of energetic resonance and trust that's built in. So at that time, back in August of '93, I didn't know he was my brother. I know that today, but I trusted him.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you met him? Like, has he incarnated in Earth?
No.
On Earth?
No, he's not. No.
So Adana has, but he has not.
Right. And and that's another really good point. I know we're not following, and there's no script here, but I know we're not following script, but there's some things I haven't talked about, and they're fascinating. As I've said to Adana many times, and we met in '95 in Tucson, and we've been buddies. We've been friends ever since. And just like friends, we had different disagreements and et cetera, but we're buddies. And I've said to her many times, do you realize how fortunate we are that at this time on this planet, and she's a few years older than me, like 4 or 5 years, but that we decided to incarnate on the same planet within the context of the same lifetime. And we're brother and sister, and we met on this planet, coming from another planet. It's pretty wild. It's surreal to think that that's a reality that's part of my life.
I know we're taking little detours, but I have so many questions. Okay, real quick before we get back on you meeting your older brother, with Adana, real quick, when you met her, was there just like this energetic resonance?
Resonance, recognition, very comfortable, but definitely recognition. It was sort of like, oh, I know you. We just started talking, and she was, I actually was doing, because of a number of people that I met, I ended up both being in the audience and then running camera 3. I took a television studio camera course. I ran camera 3. It was the far camera on the right. Headphones. I've always been a photographer, so it was easy. The rule of 6s and 9s. I'm like, not a problem.
Yeah.
I'd listen. The director would go. I said, "Do you want to slow zoom over the shoulder? Do you want me to go through the plants? What would you like?" So I'm running camera for a while. I ended up having my own show called Cosmic Contacts. So it was sort of like Dave Letterman and Leno meets contactees, and we didn't talk at all about UFOs. Now keep in mind, this is like the spring of 1995. And I'm interviewing people who are not abductees, only contactees. And I wanted to know about their experiences. Little did I know, I was having my own.
Right.
I didn't know back then I was having my own. So there's this internal motivation. And the reason for the story is Adana was in Atreya. So Atreya is a buddy of mine, Kathy. She runs Spirit's Child. It's a beautiful, incredible, like 4,000 square foot spiritual shop in Northwest Tucson. Still runs it. Back then she ran Angels from Heaven. And basically the retail shop Angels from Heaven is a front for a spiritual healing center for people who are contactees, for people who are having communication with their family members, with angels, you name it. Anything spiritual, it was happening in that little shop called Angels from Heaven. And I walked over one late afternoon, and Adana was in there talking to Kathy, and we started this conversation. It was like bing, 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 all this stuff. So, reason for that long story, Adana was one of the first people that I had on my show. So I'm doing the Letterman thing, suit, coat, and tie. I've got the desk. I've got a jazz band doing the jazz live to open the show.
Nice.
All right. And Adana comes on, and I prepped her before. I said, listen, you know, we've become such good friends. Don't think of this as an interview, and don't even worry about the cameras.
Yeah.
I'll ask some questions. You look at me. We'll have a lot of fun. She was like,
Right.
oh, I can do that. So the whole time I'm just, you know, when we're talking, the only time that I looked at the camera is when we went to a couple of breaks. But other than that, I'm looking at her the whole time. I'm engaging her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she was like, how long do we do that? I said, 43, 44 minutes. That felt like 12 minutes. I'm like, then it worked. You know?
Yeah, when you're having
Work.
fun, it's like a time warp, you know?
Right. Yes, it's very, very timeless. So that was the spring of '95. We stayed in touch for a few years. I lost track of her. And then I reestablished communication with her in the autumn of 2008, right before my dad passed away.
Okay.
And that was sort of the beginning. And interestingly enough, I was in northern Arizona at the time, and she said to me in a phone conversation, she's like, I'm seeing you having some kind of significant experience coming up in your life. You're going to be communicating with people from like M31. That's the Andromeda galaxy.
Andromeda. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I went, really? She said, yeah, it's coming through really strong. I said, of course. When? She goes, I don't know. You know,
that's so funny. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Adana, so she's actually going to be at the conference as well.
She will.
And,
yes.
And she's been at past conferences, and
she has.
She's done.
And she was with me in Australia.
Yeah.
And sometime when we get together, I'll tell you some stories. We had some amazing, you know, as you know, the Australian people are absolutely wonderful. And we just had an amazing, amazing time. But
and she does star charts, right? So people can understand their star lineage.
That's correct.
Her.
Right. And essentially what she does is she's, I've got some good higher dimensional communication abilities. Some of them are telepathic, some of them are intuition, some are deep knowing, some is automatic writing, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
She, on the other hand, was born deaf at birth. Without her hearing aids, she's stone deaf. Okay. However, people who are known to have disabilities, many of them have gifts.
Oh, yeah.
At age 12, which was triggered by her grandmother passing over, she discovered that she was a 100% open, clear, conscious telepath. So much like you and I are talking right now, she can talk to the people in the higher dimensions. Yeah. Like that. Wide open.
Yep.
And so what she will do for any potential client is she'll secure their full name, their place of birth, their date of birth, and where they live today. That's it. She then gives that information to Azar, the chief medical officer responsible for the 6 hospital biospheres. There's 6 hospital medical ship biospheres. You get a job up there.
Really?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Where do I apply?
Yeah. Well, we can hook you up. Don't worry.
Sweet.
Yeah. But she also happens to have all of the historical soul records of all people who incarnate on Earth.
So similar to like the Akashic records in a way.
Same idea. Okay. So Adana will say, I have this person, Jodi Reynosa. Is it Reynosa?
Yeah, exactly. Reynosa.
Age? We're not going to go there. She was born.
Timeless.
That's right. She's forever young. She was born in fill in the blank. She currently lives in fill in the blank. And Azar will go, yeah, okay, we know who you're talking about.
Okay.
All right, Adana, here is Jodi's soul record. And so the short version is, this is what her name is originally from the planet and the star system that she comes from. This is how long her soul has been around. This is when she started coming to Earth. And she's got family members back on this planet.
That is absolutely fascinating.
That's the short version.
That's the short version. Edgar Casey a little bit. You know, Edgar Casey would do these readings, and he'd almost go into the Akashic records basically, and he was a health intuitive as well, and
Okay.
he'd say, give me file number 323 for, TOLEC, and he'd give your full name and everything, where you lived, and then he'd say, okay, for this person who's presenting with, back pain and whatever, then he'd have a whole remedy and help
Wow.
them
Wow.
through, he was basically a channeler, medium, but
Yeah.
very Christian. And so it was very interesting because he put it all together, as one.
Oh wow.
And,
She was raised in the greater Houston area as a Bible Belt Christian.
okay.
It's decidedly not that today at all.
Uh-huh.
Like a lot of us, we still have what we could call a deep, sort of deep knowing, a deep faith. I think knowing is the best word, of the reality and the existence of a creator of creation that is responsible for everything that's happened in terms of life in the cosmos.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to qualify kind of the way that she lives today. And of course that includes respect for all life, respect for all beings.
That's beautiful.
That's the short version. And so in the short form, somebody will get something that's like 2 or 3 pages. It's called a basic report. In the full version of a star ancestry report, which she calls premium, she'll provide a much longer write-up, a description of who this person is, why he or she has come to Earth, what he or she is good at in deep space. Are you a horticulturalist? Are you a mathematician? Are you a sociologist? Are you sitting on a council somewhere else? All of these things. And she will also provide a combination of Earth-based photographs and color renderings of what this person's planet looks like, and or what this person's people look like. So it's quite extensive. The premium report, each one is like somewhere between 15 to 17 or 18 pages. It's
wow.
And so here's the executive summary. She's been doing this. We had this conversation in November of, I think, 16. I built the website for, by 2 or 3 days, she had 5 clients in 2 or 3 days. At the end of the first week, she had 12 clients. By the end of the second week, she had like 24 clients. So we're now 3.5 years down the road, right? 3,750 plus clients from 54 countries around the globe.
That's amazing.
And she came from a challenging family background.
Oh, okay.
And, a lot of judgmental Christian kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first time that she was recognized, and it's been the first time that she's been recognized for her gifts.
I love it.
For her gifts and skills globally. And we're talking Egypt, Italy, Spain, Turkey, Germany, Australia, England, all throughout the US, France, Canada, Mexico.
That's
54 countries.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
And it's so nice to have that confirmation and just feel like your gifts are being recognized by people. And I'm sure they come back and just thank her.
And yeah, absolutely. And I'll address that first. I've lost track of the numbers of people. She's like, brother, you wouldn't believe what this person has told me. So there are a number of testimonials that I've included on our website, but to a person, virtually every single person that's received her report is in some stage of amazement is the best word. And that Adana qualifies and confirms for that person what they've been feeling and experiencing their whole life in terms of a connection to Arcturus, or a connection to Andromeda, or a connection to the Pleiades.
Mm-hmm.
I think that and I know this because we talk a lot, she's probably had a total of 5 or 6 people that like, I'm not happy with this report. I don't get it. And I think she refunded the first 4. And when the next 5 or 6 showed up and said, we don't like, I said, no. Donna, you've done the work. You know, you spent either an hour and a half to 2 hours or 3 to 4 hours for the premium report, and they've gotten the report and now they don't like it. No, it's not going to happen anymore. So,
well, I think also that has to do with the people not being ready to receive certain things, you know,
yes,
not doing their own work.
But we're talking about collectively a handful of maybe a total of 7 or 8 people out of 3,750 something.
Yeah.
So that means that she's got like a 99 point whatever percentile of approval from this collection of people. And a lot of it, you know, how business is easiest when you get referrals from people from all over the place. And she's like, I want you to, now you've done me and my husband, I want you to do my sister Jenny and her best friend and her husband.
Or a birthday
gifts.
Birthday gifts, or wedding, or
all that. So yeah, she's happier today than she's ever been. She, like me, she's up here in the Texas Hill Country. She's feels very blessed that she can do this work, and she's living this life up here on her own terms, and is accepted by certainly the people locally. You know, it's just a much different environment for her. So
that's so neat.
It's worth telling the story because it's amazing to watch this, if you will, this blossoming of a woman who was chastised and sent in the corner to not talk or speak because she was, in those days, you're disabled. We don't want to hear from you, you know. Those days were real back then.
Right.
And today she's able to help people on a one-to-one basis in ways that they could have never imagined. So it's a story worth telling because she can help so many people. And that's, and we'll talk about this later, but that's the essence of my own motivation for doing these conferences, is that I can bring together people from not only across the US, but across the world. They would not have had an opportunity to meet each other otherwise. Typically they wouldn't, but they're brought together because of the commonality of awakening, being awakened, you know, increasing consciousness, and all of that, what that all means. And so sisters, parenthetically sisters, discover each other at conferences, and new relationships are started at conferences, right? And all of these things happen. And I go, wow, this is amazing to see all these people who didn't know each other kind of come together as this community. And I actually have some people come back year after year, you know, where, and if they can, you know, things happen in their lives, but it's like, yay, we get to go to a family party. You know? Yeah,
it's like a family reunion, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it just helps with people continuing their hero's journey, you know, with
Joseph Campbell's
journey, you know, and that's what Guided is really based on. It's based on Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. It's based on alchemy, spiritual alchemy, you know, on consciousness, and spirituality, and bringing people like you on to help us recognize the divinity within us, and your passion of bringing people from around the world together and to talk about these things, you know, and talking about people's gifts and developing their gifts, and just bringing conscious awareness to the world and increasing the frequency of the world, I think is so huge. Now, one of the things that was brought to my mind as you were explaining the story about Adana is I received a reading from somebody who did my star ancestry. I don't know if it was necessarily the star ancestry, but she talked about the lineage of, I guess, my galactic lineage.
Right.
So
same thing.
Same similar thing. Yeah. So what I thought was fascinating is she said, you are from an interstellar place that it's not a planet. And she said the closest thing I can think of is similar to the Sombrero galaxy, which is basically
I've seen it.
And it's similar to that. But when I look at pictures of Andromeda, I'm like, wow, that's similar as well. It's like this spiral type of
Yes.
And she's like, and she's like, you're like a being of light. She's like, and so when you had that contact experience at the age of 5 with your near-death experience as well, she said it was so weird for you to be on a ship because you don't travel that way. You think about it and you're there, you know.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
As a being of light, and so
right. As a higher dimensional life form.
right.
You know, when people you go to these different gatherings, meetings, special events, conferences, and people that got these smartphones these days, you'll see all of the photos. And if they're nighttime, you'll see all the photos of these orbs.
Mm-hmm.
Purple, blue, green, yellow, twinkling, all sorts of colors. Those are simply different life forms, energetic life forms from different places.
Yes.
And it's the easiest form. You know, you take this because, as John Mayer would say in one of his songs, we're bigger than our bodies. So when he's talking about the energetic self, they're huge. And it's only a fractal. There's only a fractal of your total, I call it an oversoul, maybe a greater soul. There's only a fractal of your greater soul, kind of like one pizza slice, maybe, that animates your body here on Earth. And there's other fractals of you doing other things all throughout the cosmos. Yeah. I've learned so far that there are 3 predominant life forms. There's organic, like we are here, that the way we experience life on this planet is organic. Once you leave 3D, from 4D through, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, it's light energy. And the next highest form of energy is plasma. That's what I've learned.
Say that again.
The next higher life force form is plasma. Plasma, like that blue.
Yeah.
Sparkling, you know, like the Nikola Tesla plasma, that kind of look. Right. That's the next higher vibration above light and energy.
Oh,
but
that's really.
Those little balls of light visiting planet Earth. They're just people. They're just beings coming to see what we're doing down here.
Really fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, let's take it back to your brother that said, meet me on this dirt road. Okay, so what happened then? Okay,
so interesting to note that because I had changed so much, I got rid of my 4-door moonroof leather-loaded car when I arrived in Arizona, and I bought a used 1984 Ford Bronco. Four-wheel drive, beat-up seats, you know,
nice.
In case I needed to go through the desert.
Right.
Only used it a couple times, so I got dressed, hopped in this vehicle, drove down the highway, did it as he asked, and I take this dirt road and I roll through the desert about a quarter of a mile when I first saw this silver disc, kind of hovering parked over the ground. And I went, there was this like little dip in the landscape, went through a wash, came up through the other side of the dip, just enough that I couldn't see. So I came up over the other side. And there's this craft. It's probably about 75, 80 feet away from me. About 35 to 40 feet in diameter, silver.
Wow.
No reflection. And there's a guy who's this really tall, good-looking Native American guy with his hair back in a ponytail. He's got a one-piece jumpsuit on with the Andromeda Council logo. I didn't know what it was at the time. He's got the logo on his jumpsuit. And I'm like, it's great to see you. Wow, this is great. You know, it's been such a long time. And he's like, come on, you hurry up. He's like, it's getting late. And I don't necessarily, because, you know, I got there probably like about 10 of 5, and it's during the summer, so it's starting to get light. And he's like, I don't necessarily want anybody that's going to be traveling on the highway relatively close to here to see my ship parked out here. We got to go.
So there was this immediate recognition.
Yes.
You didn't feel alarmed about this ship. You were just like, this is just like
immediate
day, like a car. Like I'd see a car.
Right, exactly. Immediate recognition. I recognized him. Didn't know he was my brother at the time, but recognized him. Ran over, and you know, he's 7'4", 7'5". He
Wow.
puts his arm on me down here, you know. It's like, come on. He goes, but wait, he said, you know, before we go, I've got 2 pills, and this is a true story. He's like, I got 2 pills. He said, but he said, first of all, he said, we'll deal with the other one later. He said, you got to take this pill because for what we're going to do, we have to change your current 3D organic vibratory self and raise it to the next level up, because if we tried to travel with you in this form, you would burn up.
Oh.
So we have to raise your vibration. Now,
You're like modern day Neo.
yeah, I've watched that a couple times, and there were moments where I was like, wow, I've been where he's been. I've felt what he's felt in
Wow.
terms of dealing with the magnitude of all the issues that he's had to deal with. So yeah, I felt that, not so much because of the pills, but because of what he dealt with.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pill thing. And I will tell you, I'll describe some of the experiences, but at the end of the 3rd trip, he said, remember the pills? I'm like, yeah. He said, well, you can forego the pills, and I'll give you a different one, which is a different color. And basically, if you want to, you can stay. Now, I think the pills were simply a metaphor for me to understand how I could transmute myself. Because I know that he was using some technology to do whatever was necessary.
Okay.
But I think the pills were really a metaphor.
Almost like a placebo.
Pardon?
Almost like a placebo.
Yes.
So you could kind of shift your mindset.
Right, exactly,
Okay.
right. Yeah. So he said, the people that you've been observing, they've been through so much, you would be welcomed as a guide, you know, as one of their guides to help them through this journey in life that they have. Because so there were 3 visits over the course of a week and a half, and we were in the ship sort of view screen watching what they're doing in their daily lives.
And that's when you went to Kentucky or West Virginia.
Right.
Now, when you say
Right.
either or, are you thinking because you weren't sure of the geography at that point because you were in a ship?
Well, it's so when we left planet Earth in what was then contemporary 1993, I remember us leaving the surface and, you know, flying into space, and I see, you know, view screen. I know that we're above Earth, and then he probably pushed a series of buttons because we went boom, boom, we jumped. It took longer for us to leave Earth and get to the blackness of space, outside of Earth space, than it did for us to jump from 1993 to 1840, whatever. We just went bang, bang, we jumped.
Wow.
You know, we just went computer. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to draw any of this?
When I do my presentation, I've found enough color renderings, images, photographs that I'm able to depict. I can show people, okay, Arizona desert, 1993, in this ship of this shape flying through space, what Earth looks like from space. And then I've got this color photo of a homestead in rural Kentucky or West Virginia. Now, why did I know? It's because I had been living in Arizona, and we're now looking at the eastern seaboard of the U.S. And he essentially said, he pointed down there, he goes, we're going like kind of right over there. We're going to go see people.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, okay, it's like Kentucky or Virginia. He goes, yeah, whatever. Now, interestingly enough, this family that we observed, a dad, a mom, he's like 32, she's 25 or 26. They've got a 10-year-old boy and a daughter who's got blonde hair just like you, but like loose curls, curly blonde hair, blue eyes, just like the sunshine, light of his life kind of a daughter, one of those things. And at the end of the 3rd trip, she took a nap in the barn, and something happened. There was a barn fire.
Oh.
And right, and she passed away. She smoke inhalation. She died from smoke inhalation. What we would call, she died from smoke inhalation. And it's funny because in this, it's not even funny. This is one of those, it's synchronicity that in this life, prior to having that experience, and even today, I've always felt that the most horrific kind of experience any parent could have would be to experience the loss of his or her child. I would never.
Oh, I know.
On anybody,
No.
right?
I know.
So I'm watching, and I've always been, when it's just a metaphor, but you get it. When all the guys were going out for football and baseball, that wasn't me. I was a sensitive kid. My sport ended up being anything that had a racket. I can play squash, tennis, ping pong, racquetball, all of those. But I wasn't a guy's guy. I was always sensitive emotionally. And so for me, as a young adult in my early 30s, watching this experience when there's a dad, basically my age, losing his 3.5-year-old child, and I'm watching the anguish on his face.
Oh.
So I turned to my brother, the commander of the ship, and I said, out of all of the possible first conscious adult experiences that you would have me view, you chose this one? This is awful. And he looked at me with very compassionate eyes, and he said, I understand from your perspective, this is a very difficult thing to watch, but there are going to be some very significant changes that are coming to your planet in the relative near, what you will call near future. And there will be a lot of confusion, a lot of fear, a lot of people will be leaving the planet, what you call death. And because many of us have chosen not to incarnate and take organic lives, we don't have this sense of loss because we don't live what you live. We don't die. Once we're birthed as soul, and once we're living, we're consciously living a higher dimensional life. 4.2, 4.5, 4.7, 5.1, 5.2, 5.6. So we don't die. It's just evolution. We just choose to evolve. And so from an energetic light perspective, our life expectancy is thousands of years, what you might even call millions. So we don't experience death. And secondarily, our breadth of emotional experience is kind of like this far. And you guys, you're way, way out here. And so you're riding the emotional roller coaster of life. And in order for us to better help you when these times of difficulty and earth changes and challenges and changes in your social structure and your health structure, when all of these changes are coming, sound familiar?
Yeah.
When all these changes are coming, in order for us to better help you as a race, because there'll be a moment where we'll have a definite opportunity to help, we have to understand you better. And you've been incarnating on planet Earth for a while. You have a sense and a real connection to Earth people, and you've lived their lives. So we're choosing you because we know you. You're one of us. And I learned later what that meant, but we can trust that when we see you experience what you're experiencing, we can gauge what it'll be like for an Earth father to lose his child or any family member to lose another family member.
That's really interesting. You were like a catalyst for compassion.
Well said. Yeah.
And to help them understand what that is.
Yes.
Wow.
Because imagine never taking this organic form that you have and only choosing to live a higher dimensional life. You never experience the deep pain, loss, and agony of loss of somebody that you love. In the higher realms, it doesn't happen that way.
It reminds me of almost like a Garden of Eden, where like an Adam and Eve didn't leave the garden or didn't go through the fall, so they couldn't experience like earth life, so to speak, you know what I mean? Or people who believe in the pre-existence before they come to this earth life, where in spiritual form, in light being form, they know things theoretically. They know experiences that will
Thank you.
happen, but
Right.
in the earth form, in the organic form, as you're calling it, they don't know what it would actually be like because they haven't lived in
They
this
haven't lived
form.
it.
Right. So
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
being the catalyst for them.
Yes.
So that's quite a stewardship.
Yeah, it's and there were two other experiences above and beyond that cluster of three trips, and I could talk about the others, but the other one specifically, uh, it came about 1 year later, this time in September, not August, and so I'm in like the Virgo part of the month. In
Yeah,
any
I was just
case.
gonna say, it almost seems like is there something significant with the fall? Is it like the fall equinox something?
I don't know. I don't
Oh,
know. But it was the August one was closer to my birth date, and the September one was like about a week or so later. So there was a span of about 2.5 weeks difference, but only 1 year later. And in that particular scenario, my higher dimensional, I'm not sure about this one. I'm still not exactly sure how it worked, but I know they got me out in time. That's the important part. I was on a local regional ship. So first of all, another reference, much like the state of Arizona is shaped as a vertical uh, rectangular box.
mhm.
The area of Tucson is also in that rectangular shape. And I was being given a tour on a local regional craft that's belong to one of the 4 ET bases. So I've already said that there are 4 mountain ranges outside of Tucson: northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. There are ET bases inside those mountain ranges.
Oh wow!
And I was with some other diplomatic people being given a tour on this ship. And we were heading over the area of Reddington Pass, which is kind of like mid Tucson and farther, much farther east, closer to the Rincons.
Now, when you say ET bases, are you talking Andromeda ET bases or just different races?
No, different. One of them is certainly an Andromeda Council
Okay.
aligned ET base in the
Okay.
mountains. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
And the other 3 come from different benevolent star systems that we either have a working relationship or they're independent, because there are benevolent ET groups that aren't affiliated with any council. It's like Switzerland.
Mhm.
They're like there are a number of Switzerlands out there doing their own thing.
Right.
So,
Geneva.
yeah, right. Geneva, which is a beautiful city, by the way.
I hope to go there someday.
Beautiful, beautiful French city. It's almost like being in Vieux Quebec. Cobblestone streets, French restaurants, amazing food.
Nice.
That's another conversation, but in any case,
very, very nice. And one
I'm
other thing, before you go on,
yes.
did your brother ever say how many people decided or how many souls decided to incarnate from your race here on Earth? Would you say a few? Would you say a lot?
I have that answer. Yeah. So this won't take long. About 200,000 years before the people of the planet Dakota became the people of the planet Dakota, and they were in organic form like us early on.
Okay.
They came from the Lyra system. I'm sure that you've heard a lot of humans, cosmic humans, have come from the Lyra system.
Right.
So there was a purposeful, it's hard to call it an exodus because there weren't a lot of people. I want to say upwards of 1,200 and change that were sort of the best of our planet. Scientists, sociologists, topographers, people of all sorts that chose to leave the planet and establish a colony on planet Earth.
Oh.
And to make a long story short, they traveled to what the area of what we would today call the South Pacific, what some people will call Lemuria.
Oh my goodness.
And so
I have a deep connection with Lemuria.
the people of, if you will, of Asia, not all of them, but many of the people who we would call Asian people are the people that came from Dakota. And they are actually, so there's this migration of the Asian coast up when there was a land bridge in Alaska, right? It was about 50,000 plus years ago. And I was having this conversation with a Lakota gentleman, and he said, how did you know that our people came from the Pleiades? And how did you know that our people came 50,000 years ago? And I said, because our people from planet Dakota, with an E, are your people of the Nakota, Dakota, Lakota, Apache, Comanche, Cherokee, Chippewa. I may not have all of the names right because I know that it is all of the people west of the Rockies. It's definitely the Apache. People today west of the Rockies are all descendants of the people from the planet Dakota that migrated all through Asia across the Alaska land bridge, came down into Canada. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's an amazing story. I was walking around in my last year in Tucson, the summer of 2012. I was living in far western Tucson, out by 3 Points, Sandario Road. I was house sitting this little adobe home, and it's really close to the Tahana Otham reservation. And I was out there walking a few times, and I remember how astounded I was to see people that looked like Eskimos. They look like Eskimos.
Yeah.
And the Tahana Otham people. I'm like, we're in the desert. These people should be built like me, But they came down from Alaska and Canada, and they evolved, of course. But many, many, many of the American Indians are people originating from the planet Dakota. And that was about 50,000 plus years ago that they arrived on planet Earth.
That is fascinating. So now there's a couple things that come to my mind. So number one, we talked about this before the call, before we hit record.
Yeah, right.
And that was Joseph. So, okay, let me back up. David Wilcock on Ancient Aliens not too long ago was talking about Joseph Smith, who was an early leader, a prophet for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In early 1800s, there was we'll call him a resurrected being, angelic form, Moroni, who gave him the Book of Mormon, the gold plates. Now, David Wilcock says that this Moroni person was from the Pleiades. So I thought, an interesting piece of information, because I grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and never have we heard that piece of information before. So I thought that is such a unique perspective, because I don't know where David Wilcock got that. I don't know if he channeled it. I don't know where he got it, but you and I were talking, and you said you had read some of the Book of Mormon. You thought, wow, this is ET contact all the way.
And it happened in Tucson when I was living there, and it was given to me by a buddy of mine. And actually, I'm pretty sure it was Kathy Atreya from Spirit's Child. And she's like, here's the Urantia book. And I'm like, oh, and that thing's,
I love that.
That thing's a tome.
I love the Urantia.
But we she said, here's also the Book of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons.
The Book of Mormon.
She said, I want you to read these 6 pages. You tell me what you think. So I'm like, so Joseph Smith has ET contact. People come down for that, and he forms a religion. I'm like, come on, it's classic. From the perspective that we're having this show. You read those 6 pages, and it's classic ET contact. Classic.
Yeah, and so.
And I said that to other friends in Tucson. They went, yep.
Yeah, and I've talked to several friends, like we talked about, and they've said the same thing, ET contact. Now, what TOLEC is talking about is when Joseph Smith went and prayed in a grove of trees in upstate New York when he was, a teenager. He basically believes he saw God the Father and Jesus Christ come down, descending from light.
Descending. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, descending from light. Now, the people that I've talked to believe that was ET contact, extraterrestrial contact, where he received information, he received more light and inspiration as to his life, as to what to do, and he formed a religion, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, I don't think it's too far off from going back to ancient Egypt and those ET contacts and them receiving, you know, sacred information. And then you have the Emerald Tablets. And then, for instance, we have Melchizedek in Christianity, and so many people believe he's Thoth with the Emerald Tablets. So it's so interesting how everything's just kind of woven together.
Yeah, and when you look at things like the I Ching, the
Yeah.
Tao, Lao Tzu, you know, there are interweaving among all these theologies are the concepts of reincarnation and of the evolution of the human spirit, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime.
But
And
start ancestry, like you were saying, and just like you were kind of helping us track, you know, from all the way from the Pleiades 50,000 years ago, all the way to incarnating here on Earth, and then where they came from, and then down to here you are in Arizona. And it's just like, wow, that trail is amazing.
And like you, my contact first started at age 5.
Mm-hmm.
And my near-death experience, so I too am a walk-in. My near-death experience happened at age 1.5. If you talk to mom would tell you, oh yeah, he was a sick little kid and I had to bring him. You know, it's the resurrection story.
Yes.
Mom brought me back to life, right?
Yep.
She said, you know, there were times we didn't know if you were going to make it. Blah, blah. Well, apparently, one night, as a sick, skinny little kid, the soul fractal that was animating this body at that time, at age 1.5, didn't have enough integral power source, I don't know how to say it, but to keep that body going and overcome whatever was going on.
That's
So
a good way to put it.
Yeah, that internal power source, that fractal, stepped out and said, I'm going to give this job to somebody else who's got a job on this planet later on anyway, and he's all set up for it. So out goes that soul fractal, and this one comes in. And I honestly don't remember any contact at all as a child, though they said I've had it at different moments, different points. I've got this cool story. I'm gonna go back. So we're gonna recircle. We're gonna come back around the gate, and I'm gonna finish the story. So back to that story. I'm on this ship, and to make a long story short, we're having this tour, and there's somebody the equivalent of like number 1 from Star Trek who's giving the tour, and he's male. And this ensign comes up and he's starting to talk. I'm in the front of the group behind him. I can hear the conversation. He basically says, sir, we've got problems. We're going down. And the guy basically says, that's not possible. This ship just came through a major overhaul and there's nothing wrong with the ship. He goes, you understand, we have problems with the stabilization system. Apparently there was a gyro in the bottom of the ship that kept this ship completely balanced, both pitch and yaw, front, back, side to side, right?
Interesting.
That thing was defective. And the only way they couldn't fix it, they had to replace it, which means they had to go to space dock. That wasn't going to happen. He said, we've got to prepare, this ship is going down. So by the third time he said this ship starts to go like this way. It's pitching downward, and it's starting to increase speed. Women and children, because they're crew members with families, women and children are running around screaming.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, this is not good. Next thing later, bang. I bolt out of my bed in my body. I've got a cold sweat. And I feel profoundly, profoundly sad.
Oh.
Don't know why I'm profoundly sad, but I'm profoundly sad. I bolt up in a cold sweat, go to the bathroom, throw cold water on my face. And it was right around the same time as that first experience. Not the same date, but same time. I think this one was like 3:30, 3:44, that sort of magical time.
Yep.
And even so back in those days, so this is, see the 90, yeah, it's 94. So September 94. Healthcare software industry, suit, coat, and tie. Even in Tucson, suit, coat, and tie. I'm going to work in the day. I get to about 4:30, and I contacted a buddy of mine by phone. I'm in my office, pick up the phone. Remember punching buttons? Pick up the phone, call, and I go, "Hey, Roger, you get a minute?" He says, "Yeah, sure." And he had become a friend. At that point in time, he was still the assistant state section director for MUFON.
Oh, okay.
Pima County. Hey, old school, MUFON.
Nice.
Become a really good friend. And I said, "Are you sitting down?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "All right." I said, "You got a few moments? I got a story to tell you." He goes, "Yeah, sure." So I tell him the whole story. And he said, "Are you sure of this?" I said, "Yeah, of course I'm sure. I experienced it." He's like, "Tell me the story again." So I tell him the story in excruciating detail. He said, "All right, now are you sitting down?" I said, "Yeah, I've been sitting here the whole time. I needed to get through the bulk of my day, get my responsibilities out of the way." I said, "Figure 4:30 is a good time." He's like, "Yes, this is fine." He said, "Here's what happened to me at like 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't remember the exact time." He said, "I got a phone call from one of my field investigation people. And then a second phone call from one of my MUFON field investigation people that said there was a crash retrieval team that went out to the Reddington Pass area. There were approximately 127 lives aboard ship.
Oh,
there were only 2 remaining after when the crash happened. There were 2 remaining, and then one of them passed over, and so ultimately there was only 1 person remaining after that crash happened.
Wow.
I then, in that moment, understood why I bolted up in my bed with a deep sense of loss and profound sadness and a cold sweat. I got yanked out of there. One form or fashion, I got yanked out of there in time because there were 126 lives ultimately that were lost. And so again, I tell that story because it was about their ability, all of my higher dimensional family members and the people on the council, other people on the council, to have a better grasp of what it's like for an Earth human to immediately experience death and loss in this dimension, in this organic life on this planet. And
that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's,
oh my gosh. And another confirmation for you that this happened.
Yeah.
This was real. This is just not something that you made up in your mind or you dreamed.
Yeah, no. As a matter of fact, there was a third time, and there's not too much detail to it other than I was in the Prescott Valley, Dewey area, which is way out in the country, due southwest of Sedona, visiting with a buddy of mine over the weekend. It was actually happened to be my 50th birthday at the time. And I was not happy about turning 50 at all. And I really wanted to be, he's like, "Hey, don't worry about it. If you need to go for a walk, go for a walk." And I did. I went for a walk in the hills for like the day. And I had been walking, up and down all of these hills. And I remember looking up to my left-hand corner of my eye, and I saw this cloud formation. And I'll send you the photo because I used one of my first smartphones at the time. And there's this beautiful profile of a Native American warrior.
Oh, wow.
Hair back, headdress, so it's profile. Hair back, headdress, nose, lips, no mustache. Nose, lips, mouth, chin, complete profile. It's an amazing image. And I was being stubborn. He's like, "Hey, look up." What? Look up. I'm like, "No, come on. I'm not happy. I'm 50. I'm going for a walk. Leave me alone. I haven't heard from you guys in years." So by the time I looked up, the perfect profile of the nose had kind of slid off a little bit, but I can send you the photo and you will easily recognize that it's the profile of a Native American warrior.
That is
Dakota, Lakota.
Uh-huh.
They picked me up on that trip. They said, "Come on, got some training to do."
Yeah. That's
Now,
amazing.
I don't know how, I could have been gone a week, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months. I don't know how long I was gone, but they dropped me back off at like 4:30 or 4:45 at the end of the day, and I finished my walk.
So that's
I got
another
the photo. I have the photo of this beautiful profile, chronicling one of my contact experiences.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and for all of you out there who aren't familiar with the time travel stuff, somebody can go out and come back in, and in our time, it could be like a minute, 5 minutes, but then in space time, it could be like Tolek just said, 1 month, 3 months, a year,
2
or
weeks.
Corey Good has talked about 20 and backs to the moon and Mars,
Right.
all those super soldiers who have done missions like that. So time is irrelevant in interdimensional land.
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, so we live what we call linear time. It's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a minute, an hour, 5 hours, and so it's very linear. When they look at the concept, these aren't the right words, but for lack of better words, when they look at the concept of time, it's kind of like looking inside of a pool. It's round, and it's just event, 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 event. And so, excuse me, with the things that are happening on planet right now, I can tell you decidedly, because of the things that are happening, not because of the year, but because of the things that are happening, that we are decidedly we're getting very close to that moment of a magnitude of change, not only of this planet, but of the people of this planet. And I've spoken about this many times before, and there are other people unknowingly who have corroborated my story, that have essentially said, people before me and people after me have said, yes, there'll be a moment when this planet goes from being a solid organic world to being a higher dimensional light body. It's going to transmute, it's going to transform. It's going to transform. Yeah, ergo my transformational shift title thing for conferences. But the planet and many of the people are going to transform, and many, 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 many will leave because they won't be able to handle the higher vibration. So we're going to lose some animals and a whole bunch of people. But if you were in space, moments, if you will, or hours in a ship looking at planet Earth after the transformation, you would see this beautiful planet with different but similar landscapes, and it would look like a crystal blue ball.
I've seen things like that.
Translucent, you can see through it, and you know that there are oceans there, and you know that there's some landforms.
Mm-hmm.
But it's made out of fine essence matter, out of light energy.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen
organic.
things like that, and almost where it's almost like glass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Looks translucent, much like
Yes.
Sparkling glass.
Yes.
And with a blue tint to it.
Yes. Yeah. Very fascinating. Going back to your story, something else that comes to my mind is there's a species of greys who also, they don't have that emotional acumen, so to speak. And so they have come back in many instances, according to contactees and abductees, who have said they have telepathically, almost like somehow created some type of mental intercourse with them, where they've looked at different scenarios in that person's life, happy, sad, scary, what have you, across the emotional spectrum, so that they can kind of grasp what it's like to be human. And I don't know, but that's what I've heard from the gray species. So
I learned specifically a long time ago, back in the 90s, that the people from the Zeta Reticulan star system had reached out to get some help from the Galactic Council because of some bad decisions in deciding early on to work with the Draco reptilians. You know, bad news, right?
Yeah.
And that's just one of the stories, but the story that addresses this topic that you're talking about is the fact that they, at least one branch of them, had evolved technologically,
Yes,
and intellectually so far that they had left back their emotional component.
right.
And that's one of the reasons for the hybridization plan going on this planet,
Right.
to
Right.
reintegrate, you know, that great capacity for fear, anger, love, you know, for all of it, you know, the great, as you said, the great human emotional spectrum, to reintegrate that capacity to feel back into their species again.
Yeah. Now, with the people that you basically observed, do you feel like there was any connection to that family?
Oh, there was.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah. It's pretty simple. They said, we've chosen this family because with the Earth body that you now have, and because of some of the women that I know that have developed these pretty incredible gifts of being ancestral healers, you know, ancestral healers to the DNA level. We've now learned that the energy and emotions of something that happens to like a great aunt or great uncle, or in my case, I had something that was sort of triggered a couple of years ago by like a great grandmother, that she didn't want to deal with something. And I only picked this up a couple of years ago, but it was causing some emotional discomfort in me. And it was specifically located sort of like just south of my stomach region and my pelvic region. Grandmother, right? Female. Yeah. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. It certainly doesn't feel comfortable, but hang on, this is not mine. I knew it wasn't mine.
How intuitive for you to even ask that question. Is this mine, or is this somebody else's?
But it didn't even feel, it didn't feel like mine. Because I had already, you know, by 2 years ago, I'd done a lot of work on myself, so that in terms of residual negative energy that was still in this body, gone. I've been through so much in my life. So I'm feeling this. I'm feeling some level of anxiousness. And anxiety for me is just, it doesn't exist. It's not something that's part of my life. So I said, something's going on here. So I reached out to a buddy of mine who you'll get to meet at the conference, Cheyenne Stone. She's one of these people doing sort of DNA level, ancestral level healing. She said, oh, you've got a great grandmother who had this issue that she didn't want to deal with, and she just went, it's going down the timeline. I'm not dealing with it. So this body got it, and it got triggered.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there was some soul contract with her, with both of you, and you said, you know what, I'll take it for you, and then I'll clear it.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Yeah,
but
I don't know. But
very interesting.
Cheyenne did the work. I was really grateful. I'm like, so she was like, good, she's doing her thing. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Thanks. You know, it's like gone. It's an energy release. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an energetic release. Yeah.
That's so great. That's so wonderful. Yeah, because I mean, your story going back to the family that you observed, you know, I'm thinking, is there some...
And they were relatives. They were relatives of this body, body.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, and to your point, often when we have these spiritual experiences, or whether it's with our star ancestors, it's going to either be with loved ones, for loved ones, about loved ones,
yes,
or in our star circles. Yeah.
There's a good friend of mine, Dan Brock, who's back in Tucson.
Yeah, I
talented
just
gentleman.
you.
Yeah, and yeah, that's right. And Dan, not only is he talented, he's really talented. He was the guy who created the sound management software for the movie Avatar.
Oh, amazing.
He was working in Hollywood back then. So that's his baby.
Amazing.
And everyone's really, he'll what that would. I go, yeah, Dan, got it. You know that you're very gifted. I learned that he's my first cousin. And when I look at my own chart of the different people that I know, he's my first cousin on my dad's side from back on Dakota. And there are a number of other people that are cousins that are on this planet at the same time. So
related to Andromeda.
Related to people that I'm related to back on the planet Dakota, located in the Pleiades.
Oh,
and it's called, on this planet, they call it the Andromeda Council, but in deep space, again, by all of the ambassadors, let me say it this way, the Galactic Council is very much what a fully functional deep space UN should be.
Right, yeah.
The Galactic Council is a deep space, fully functional UN. It's all about
the governance body.
Rules of governance and protocols and which planets trade with which and everything else. And the Galactic Federation piece is basically the Council Space Force that basically enforces and enforces is not the word, it's facilitates trade, architectural, art exchange, music exchange, products, technology exchange from the different planetary systems. That's the role of the Galactic Federation.
Okay.
And it is the day-to-day, if you will, management body from all these different planetary systems. Yeah. And the council is essentially Deep Space UN, but it's a functional one, actually.
So actually, bringing up the Urantia book again, for those of you who want to learn more about councils and how deep space kind of works, and protocol. I mean, there's even space wardens. There's all sorts of things. I mean, the Urantia book is really a great book to kind of understand the space hierarchy of things. Yeah. Would you agree, TOLEC'S?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And while I was in Tucson already, I at that point in time met people who were deep into, and they had left their spiritual paths, and they were deep in. Let me try this again. They had left their religious paths. Most of them were Christians.
Okay.
And they had chosen Ekankar. And Ekankar is the use of sound and light as a means to connect with creator or creation and as a means to evolve. So the more energy, sound, and light, music, for one, that you bring into your life, the quicker you can evolve and travel and traverse these different higher dimensional planets. So it's all about spiritual growth and higher dimensional planet travel.
That's amazing.
That's what Ekankar is all about.
Wow. It's called Ekankar?
Ekankar, right. And they're the primary word that they use to begin to raise their vibration, and that they continue to use, is a word called Hu, H-U. And so the word human, or as the Ferengi would say, human, right? It's a purposeful word. It's God-man.
Yes.
If you look at the concept of God creator creating man and woman, human, God-man.
Yes.
That's the genesis for that word. So the people of Ekankar, whenever they read the passage or passages from their Bible at the end of a 45 or 50 minute session, they would all sit and hew together. They would close their eyes and hew, and it would go like for 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. And I swear that one time when I was joining them, I could almost feel myself levitate off my seat.
Wow.
That's the way it felt. Yeah. And if you hear or read about or watch any of the videos by Graham Hancock and some other people, there are theories out there that explain the building of some of the pyramids by energy and sound.
Absolutely. In fact, I was just going to say, biblically, if you read about the walls of Jericho falling, my theory is that it's through sound. You know, it was through the marching and the sound and all of that. And then also when you
or maybe somebody triggered a device and they turned it up high enough that it was vibrating, and
there
vibrating sound.
That very well could be.
That's actually how, and this might be another conversation, but that's actually how the people of the Procyon star system planet Cana took out many of the reptilian undersea bases. It's like using sound waves. So it's energy, it's vibration, it's sound, it's pitch to basically explode things.
That makes sense too. Yeah. And then I know with like different like Buddhist monks and people in that genre, you know, they've levitated rocks and things super heavy through sound and phonation.
Yeah. Have you heard any of the people who use the crystal bowls?
I love. Yes.
Yeah, go to Mount Shasta. Go to Mount Shasta. It's the land of crystal bowls.
Yes. In fact, that is where I had my first crystal bowl experience, where I played the crystal bowl that just resonated with my soul. And it was like, I think it was the A, key of A or something. And
everybody's got a different key.
Yeah. And
A, B, C, D.
That was Hertz 432, which is the heart chakra.
Right.
And speaking of Mount Shasta is very close to my heart. So
it's a great place.
And the fact that you said ET bases tend to be in the mountains, you know, and I know there's Telos in there and Adama.
Oh, yeah.
So very, very neat. So going back to your bio though, you know, they told you that you had more than 100 contact experiences since the age of 5. Over the span of your life, have you learned more about those contact experiences through maybe meditation or direct contact with them, or how?
Yeah, here's the best way and the honest way that I can answer this question, and I think other people may have also gotten here as well. I can't speak for other people, but for me, I know how and why it's happened the way it has. Whether it's been me asking questions and getting answers on my own directly from them in a variety of methods, including some telepathy, or me getting some of those answers qualified and quantified by a Donna, who's a completely 100% open telepath. Because I go, okay, I'm getting a lot here. Can you help me? Yeah, sure, all right. And we would spend hours and hours and hours with me getting all the details. The place of, I guess, peace and solace that I've gotten to with contact is that, quite honestly, if I was able to remember all of my contact and all that I've learned, and the fact that there's a major part of me that's not here on planet, that's up on the Andromeda Council Primary Biosphere, I wouldn't want to stay here. This is an absolutely beautiful planet in terms of the stunning blue skies and the oceans and the lakes and the streams and the rivers and all of its glory. But it is my opinion that the gross amount of humanity, the large amount of humanity, is completely unawakened. And therefore, as a total populace. Now, I'm not talking about the indigenous people who are way off the charts more evolved than we are. You know, the originals, the Maori, the people from Africa, the natives of this planet, the natives of this country, and all. But the people from the developed countries.
Yeah. Mostly
asleep, mostly. And so that's relevant because though I love this planet because of its beauty and all that it is, the people are a mess. They're a mess. They're a neurotic mess. They're an anxious bunch. They jump to fear and accusation quickly. They don't trust each other. They create weapons of war that are sick. So if I remembered everything, we wouldn't be having this conversation today because I'd be off this beautiful blue ball. Living with people who are peaceful and loving all the time.
Yeah.
That's their normal state, is peace and love and acceptance and tranquility. So
I think you, though, must feel a great responsibility for the people here in helping them wake up and in helping increase the frequency of humanity. And that's why you stay.
Yeah. I did. It is every once in a while. Boy, I do. I feel the weight of that responsibility, and I'm not the only one.
Right.
My job when I'm up on the biosphere, I'm on the joint. There already exists a subcommittee called the Joint Earth Council, and at some point when the remaining people on this planet get to a place of acceptance and love and peace and nonviolence consistently for at least a little while, at that moment in time, we as a single planet will be given an invitation to become part of the Galactic Federation and the Council, because we will have grown and evolved enough that they won't be inviting the sixth grade bully who perpetually kicks his cousins, his friends around and is mean to them. They'll be inviting mature, emotionally mature, spiritually mature people on to this, if you will, benevolent, awake and aware council.
Yeah.
So there exists today a subcommittee called the Joint Earth Council. When Earth gets an invitation, starts to go through that process, there will on Earth become a Joint Earth Council. So there's bilateral communication between that body here on Earth and the one that's out in deep space. And so
yeah, and I was just going to ask you, as far as the one here, where do you think, how does Trump play into all of this? Do you think he's trying to move towards that, with the Space Force and all of that?
Oh,
so that
decidedly.
Become part of that?
Yes, yeah, decidedly. He is, I think without doubt, the right man at the right time. I don't know if he'll have enough energy. I'd always thought that he would be reappointed, and I speak very specifically, reappointed to a second term, because he was chosen. The whole process of voting is not what we think it is at all. And I can get into the details of that. But he was chosen because he is not a politician. He's a contractor and developer. And I've met a few contractors and developers in my day, and they're not Aries and Geminis. They're not eloquent, well-spoken people. They're brusque, and they're rough, and they're harsh, and they usually don't care about who they piss off. As a group, that's a pretty accurate description. And Mr. Trump
is a Gemini.
Yeah, right. But keep in mind, he's a contractor and a developer. He's a developer first and foremost.
True.
And and he's but even more important than that, he's a man that hasn't come from the political system. And I remember speaking with the guys upstairs in late 2015. It was like the end of October, beginning of November. I had a conversation with them and I said, okay, this person that we know as Barack Obama, they go, yeah, the guy you call Barack Obama. I said, I have a sense that we're facing a big change. So what are we going to be looking at in terms of the next president of the United States? And the answer essentially was, the man that you know as Barack Obama, that you call president, will be the very last president of his type, coming from the establishment of the political system in the United States that you know as the United States today. He will be the very last political president. Wow. And I didn't even know about Trump running back then. I had too many other things going on in my life to be paying attention to politics. I had no clue that Trump would be running, none. And they said, there will be a man from outside the political system who will be appointed, and he will be an instigator and an advocate of perpetual change. He will get rid of federal agencies. He will tear down the system and remove redundancy like you've never seen before. That's his job. That's why he's being put in place. Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
so
he's
whether
not
Trump gets reappointed or not, it might be him, it might be somebody else, but it will be somebody else who at his or her core is from outside of the system and is not a politician.
interesting.
Because the politicians, that's why Trump so frustrates the politicians, because he didn't come from their boys club. He's not one of them. And they can stop and scream and shout and act like little schoolyard children, but he doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, he doesn't care.
So speaking of all the politics and everything like that, what does the Andromeda Council believe about this new world order and taking them out or not taking them out, or how is it unfolding in their perspective?
Okay, in their perspective, the new world order is simply the old world order that is dying.
Okay.
And it's dying for a number of reasons, but sort of like if you have a monarchy that's been in place for a long, long time and outlives its purpose, very much is the same for any potential upside that the powers that shouldn't be, also known as the deep state. And if it manifested in a new form, you could call it the New World Order, but essentially, because this planet, as part of this solar system traveling through space, is entering an area of space of higher vibration, higher frequency, everything is raising on this planet. And because the vibrations and the frequencies are raising, even if the powers that shouldn't be, the deep state, lower vibrational beings that have controlled this planet, the upper 1%, most of whom aren't human anyway,
Yeah.
they won't be able to tolerate the new vibration and the higher frequencies of planet. So they're one way or another, they're leaving. Now it may get messier before that happens, and it will likely get messier, including an alleged false flag alien invasion, even though they're already here. We could see ships, and we could see some ferocious looking ETs, or we could see blonde, tall Pleiadian saviors. And I would say to anybody, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do.
Good point. Really good point.
It could simply be reptilian hybrid, cosmic human blended humanoids that look human but are simply running a reptilian agenda. And there are some hybrids on planet right now that are doing that. So I've been taught, and I certainly believe that there's going to come a point where there will be some kind of either fake alien invasion or an overt power grab. And when that happens, there will be people from the benevolent star systems that are going to help us.
Yeah, I've seen it.
There's this dichotomy of, don't wait for the savior, don't wait. And I'm like, no, we should not. We should do what's necessary to take ourselves to go after people who have no interest in humanity as a whole or in people. Yeah. We should take every step possible. But I believe we're going to see a point when an overt power grab will be produced by the deep state powers that be, that are reptilians in another form that look human, and it'll just be time. It'll be time for them to be taken out. Because if they're reptilian, they can cross that thing called the prime directive line. They've done it in taking out reptilian bases. They can do it in taking out the remaining ones that are here on Earth.
What's it called again?
The concept, the mythology concept of prime directive, basically says if you're a benevolent being that's been traveling the cosmos and you're evolved, you need to let the people on any planet evolve and grow. Well, the one exception to that rule is if they've been messed with by malevolent ETs, by malevolent beings, but long enough and bad enough, there's a point in time where you can just step in and go, all right, time to clean out the rat's nest once and for all.
Right. Yeah. And prime directive being like universal law.
Yes, that's right.
The law of one and all of that.
Right, all of that. It encompasses all of that. But it's, it's respect for yourself, for your neighbor, for your family members, love, respect, compassion, kindness, all of that. And the deep state powers that be, they don't care about that. They don't care about humanity. We're simply a resource to be consumed. And they want less of us on the planet. They want less of us on the planet anyway. So if people think it's bad now with this whole COVID thing, and they think it's crazy and confusing, you see people in fear right now, everything that I know and have learned is it's going to get uglier and it's going to get worse. But before it gets better, it'll get better. It'll get better, but
in fact, I was just listening to one of the leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he said, things are going to get rough before they get better at this point.
Yes.
His name was Elder Holland, and he said, Jeffrey R. Holland, and he said, because people were asking, there was a Jewish rabbi interviewing him, and he said, what do you think about, Jesus Christ coming and, the second coming and all of that, and he said, well, he said, there's going to be some rough waters before that happens, and we need to prepare ourselves spiritually and all of that. But I mean, even to your point about a possible alien invasion, or the look of an alien invasion.
Right. Thank you.
I think that what I've seen actually is that the white hats, along with our galactic brothers and sisters, I've seen where we have some type of technology with their help, where we actually have almost like this force field that we protect the earth from them infiltrating, the malevolent.
That already exists. There's already.
That's what I've heard. I heard
people.
Something.
The people. So the people of the Galactic Council, aka Andromeda Council, they occupy about 50% of the Sphere Being Alliance. The Corey Goode Sphere Being Alliance. So 50% of that alliance is my people from the Galactic Council, and there were and there are 12 council biospheres that are set in place in the solar system, or if you will, surrounding the solar system. So here's how it breaks down. At the edge of the solar system, there are 9 biospheres. There are 3 others that are in and around Earth and Sun space. And there is essentially a complete energetic bubble around the whole planet. So you've got So wherever they're coming from, no more, if you will, malevolent ET beings coming into Earth space, because this place is a mess and it needs to complete. It's just like, it's not the planet that's a mess, though the planet can be a mess if humans keep dumping into it with their emotions and their trash and everything else. It's not the planet. It's the people on the planet that are a mess.
Not doing their own work.
Yes. So we, as this iteration of humans on this planet, need to, just like any human that goes through his or her own evolution. And it took this for me. It was years ago, but I had to hit the lowest point possible to go, what do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to continue to deal with fear and anxiety? Do I want to continue to feel a sense of not being enough, lack of self-worth, lack of self-value? No, I do not want to live like that. And that low was the beginning. That was the moment of my transmutation and growth.
Yeah.
Well, as a metaphor, that process has to happen here on Earth, because the greater percentage of the population on this planet has not been through that process yet. And so we need to go bang, bang, bang,
Yeah.
It's got to fall so that it can be rebuilt and rejuvenated, if you will, anew as a higher dimensional world.
It's like the dark night of the soul for the entire earth. On an
I could have used those words, but yes, it's exactly the dark night of the soul. It has to go through that process in order to transform.
So it's like as a collective, when people are going through that dark night of the soul, in order to have that alchemical higher frequency as they go through that journey, then it will be reflective on the external as well.
That's correct.
So at this point, we're seeing, like you said, the mass is actually at a lower internal point in their lives, and so it's reflective on the external.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, think of most of the people I speak with, like you and I and Tom Dongo and Rob Simone and just a whole bunch of others that we've been through all of this. They will acknowledge that, you know, the greater percentage of people on Earth in the developed countries have not done the emotional and spiritual work both. Because when you talk to people who are first awakening, their version of emotional growth is, I no longer need to worship God through Jesus or some other path. I can talk directly to God. That's what they think is the beginning of emotion of a spiritual path, and that that can be that, you know, it's like it's almost like the wagon wheel, you know, the old West. If we think about getting closer to creation or creator or source that's in the center, there are many paths to get there.
Yes.
You know, yoga is one, and consciousness is one, and awakening is another, and ET contact is another, and abduction is another, and all of those are the path to get closer to source, creator, creation. But just a lot of people have chosen not to do that work. They just
it's spiritual bypassing is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people will do the spiritual bypassing where they want to dismiss it. They don't want to look at it. It's too difficult, or
well, and I'll say it because say it because most people won't. Men, most men won't do that work, and I can tell you because after 5 years of conferences and special events, and they're, you know, our ratio is about, if we're lucky, it's 80 women, 20% men. It's usually like 87% women, 13% men.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
That's the way it is. You know? And whoever you are, male or female, I believe, because I've talked to people like yourself who've been through a transformational experience, literally, emotional, spiritual transformational experience. I believe that it takes a lot of close examination and fortitude, whether you hit bottom or not. It takes a lot of close examination and fortitude to say, I need to be better. I need to do better. I need to be a better person. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, but I want to put myself on that conscious path.
Yeah. You know, speaking of that, even a lot of prayer, meditation, whatever you decide to do. I was talking to my sister the other day, and it was really beautiful. She said, I've been setting aside some time every day. And this is very different for her, you know, something new, which I thought was really beautiful. She said, I've been setting aside some time for prayer. And she said, what I've noticed is that I go from my regular every day-to-day voice to all of a sudden I shift into this other voice where it's like the higher iteration of my soul comes through. And it's like I receive this beautiful instruction for my day and for what I need. And it just, I was like, wow, it's almost like she's channeling the highest iteration of herself, along with, I'm sure, information from her guides and her galactic family and all of that. And I just think that as we seek to be in alignment with deity and our divinity, like it will come through. We just have to want it and ask for it and not be in the fear, you
Yes,
know?
right, exactly, exactly. I feel very blessed, whether I've lived in the greater Tucson area, and the different places I lived while I was there for 20 plus years. I was either way far north next to the Catalina Mountains, or way far east next to the Rincon. They're more like foothills, but Rincon Mountains comparatively. And my last experience there, I was way far west, but I was still out in the desert. I've always chosen to live out in nature and to get out in nature where you can you can hear your heartbeat.
Oh,
You
yes.
can
Yes.
you can hear the sounds of nature, whether it's bunny rabbits or deer walking by, or even the sounds, like I said before, the sounds of insects. Here in this new area of the Texas Hill Country I'm in, it's equally as pristine and peaceful and quiet, and the air is equally as clean as where you are in Utah. There are just these places in the country where you can, if anybody chooses to, it may not be easy, but if they choose to make that choice, and where it could be Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, or Maine, you could live out in the rural countryside and acquire a greater vibration of peace around you because of being submerged in nature. And I've
Yeah,
always been submerged in nature as an adult. I love living out in the country.
I know.
I wasn't born and raised in the country. I was raised in a suburban town, small city.
Mhm.
But this
Yeah.
adult life, I'm out in the country, and I feel blessed. I can walk outside. And I just watched 3 deer walk by.
It's
They're
beautiful.
here all the time. They're gentle creatures. 2.5 weeks ago, for the first time, instead of throwing some food out to them, I put some in my hand and I walked outside, and there's this one pregnant mama deer. She walked up and she started to eat from my hand. I
Oh,
went, it was like, wow.
that,
it was just
you just don't get
so,
that in the cities, you know?
no, you don't. But,
That's
you know,
beautiful.
where
Yeah,
you are, where you are out in the country, and, you can walk out on any night and look up and go, wow,
no.
the
It's like
sky, the stars.
unincorporated. Yeah, and the Red Rock, we have the Red Rock here as well, and Zion
Yes,
National Park is not too far away. Bryce Canyon's not too far away where I
yes.
am, and it's
Yeah, and
just
Bryce and Zion
yeah.
are absolutely incredible.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It's so majestic, and that actually leads me to, I read on AndromedaCouncil.com, where you can find out more about the transformational shift conferences and so much more, everybody. But I was looking at, I believe it was Adana who channeled something about our Earth, and how either your guides or you'll gain information through your dreams where you may need to move if you should move. And oftentimes it might be to rural places because there's going to be, like TOLEC'S said, a lot of coming changes, not just with humanity, but also with the geography of the earth.
Earth
Um,
changes.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we've seen a lot with earthquakes and tsunamis and what have you. But she actually goes into channeling some very specific changes, which I found very interesting. And that was a channeling from January of this year, I believe.
Yeah, it's a matter of fact. We held a conversation, much like you and I are having a conversation, and we produced this one particular video about what's coming for this country and this planet in the near term.
Okay.
And Earth changes are coming for us. As a matter of fact, late last year and early this year, there have been some additional uh, deep earthquakes as a result of volcanic activity down in the Caribbean. If you got one underwater volcano that pops off, that's serious in the Caribbean, and this thing blows, guess where that tsunami wave is going to go out to? The Gulf Coast region. It's going to hit Florida. It's going to certainly hit the west coast of Florida. It's going to hit the whole Gulf Coast region. So based on everything that I've learned and seen, this hill country of Texas, we're way enough inland that's
Right.
not an issue for us up here at all.
And then California is going to get quite some, get a lot of changes. you know,
There's
on
there's an underwater volcano that is, so you've got LA and San Diego.
Yeah.
Halfway out, about 150 miles out, that is said to be one of the triggers for one of the wave events for California. We learned this a while ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Wow.
That when that volcano pops, there's one of the major waves that will hit the California coast. And I've learned that the third wave will go as far as the Rincon Mountains in Tucson. It's going to go washing over Bear Mountain.
Wow.
All the way in past Yuma into Tucson and up against the Rincons, and it'll sort of flush back out. And the new Pacific coastline, when it's all said and done, will be Flagstaff will be an island at 7,000. With today, 7,200 feet. Flagstaff will be an island. Sedona underwater. Phoenix will be a seaport, and so the new coast will pretty much cut along I-10.
Wow. So that is really interesting to me, because probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I kept having dreams that there was going to be a city that would resurface from the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. So almost like this ancient city.
Well, Lemuria is supposed to rise. Like far southeast from California. If you go far enough out, Lemuria is supposed to rise, yes.
Yeah, so that's what, at that time, I felt it was something like Lemuria coming up, resurfacing. And I kept getting this word, and in my dream, a guide said, you need to remember this word. So then when I woke up, I wrote it down, and all it was Lemuria backwards. So it was like an anagram.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting.
So that's interesting that I said that, yes, it would be this land we call Lemuria, and then you get the anagram for Lemuria.
I know.
All about the same topic. Wow.
I know. I'll have to email you the word that I got. It was wild.
Wow. Yeah. When we have these experiences, you go, again, we don't quite know what it all means in that very moment, but then it's almost like there's this trickle down effect of you get more and then more and then more, and then at some moment you go, oh, all right, here's the big picture.
Yeah.
Usually, whatever that major point is, usually reveals itself over time. That's what
true.
Yeah.
And then also talking to people like you, because I feel like people fill in the missing pieces.
Yes.
Yeah. So that really helps.
Yeah,
so going back to the reptilians and the Dracos and all of that, and the deep state, and how that all plays a part within each other, and also some of the things going on right now. From the pandemic to the plandemic to, whatever you want to call it. There's just some things that the deep state has really, planted into our society. We're seeing the arrests of some key people from Hollywood to government, with the pedophilia rings, all of that. Would you say is associated with not just Illuminati, but with the reptilians and Dracos?
Absolutely. Unequivocally, absolutely. It could be a long story, but I'll keep it as short as possible. When people in this genre of interest, all of these topics that fall under awakening consciousness, right? When we started talking about this topic a few years ago, and then more than that, when I was talking about it in 2012, when I was talking about how reptilians function, I was basically ahead of the curve, explaining to everybody what a Draco reptilian is like, as compared to a Hydra reptilian, as compared to a Sirius B reptilian, as compared to an Orion reptilian, as compared to a reptilian that's been here on Earth for years.
Wow.
Right.
I didn't even know there was quite the difference.
A Draco reptilian is a being that whose people was dumped into the Draco constellation from somewhere else. But more importantly, they are in their original organic form, a voracious meat-eating species.
Hmm.
And they prefer their food to be live, and if not alive, then recently killed. And in their, if you will, higher vibrational, they're not the wrong words, but for lack of a better, in their non-organic form, when they're in a, if you will, lower 4D vibrational form,
Mm-hmm.
then instead of absorbing and consuming flesh and blood, they're consuming the energy that's a result of preferably people who've been terrorized.
Okay, so like Archon stuff.
Yes, you could use the word archons, but specifically reptilians that are meat eating. And here it is in the most logical way I can lay it out for people. It's kind of like follow the money, right? Same idea. Why would a being want to consume something that kind of doesn't make any sense? I mean, you could just go, oh, all right, I eat a rabbit or something, right? Well, it's all about, if you terrorize a child, and especially a girl, the younger the girl, the younger the terror, the deeper the emotional trauma, the higher that the adrenaline spikes in the human body. In an energetic form, people in this community called it loosh, starting 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's given another name. I don't know what it is these days, but today in the media, they're calling it androchrome.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
So that is, throughout the human body blood system, the body's systematic response to being abused, terrorized, etc., victimized, sexualized over and over again. And each time the perpetrator would come back,
Mm-hmm.
that anxiety spike would go up again.
Yeah.
And so it creates for the reptilians something like methadone or heroin. It's the equivalent of a really high-end drug. It gives them this euphoric, yeah, I want some more. That's all it's about. You know, you can start at the moment of the abuse, but when you go to the end, ultimately, it's all about the reptilians getting their drug fix.
Wow.
And in between, you have Luciferians and satanic cults and letting of blood, but it's all about torture for the sake of boosting the adrenal glands to create the spike, to have this high level of adrenal injected blood that the reptilians ultimately prefer to ingest. You know, if you cut away all of the other noise, that's what it's about. It's about a meat-eating race of beings getting their drug fix. That's all it is. Now, is it bad? Absolutely, it's horrific. But if you take away all the moral issues and just look at it for what it is, from an experiential standpoint, it's all about the sake of boosting adrenals to create a drug, to fill a drug fix for a race of beings.
So all the control structures that they've created are surrounded because of the fix that they need.
That's
so
right.
Like, for instance, almost like the pedophilia rings, they're almost
exactly
cartels in a way.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Now there are no longer tens of thousands of Draco reptilians or Hydra reptilians on planet. There are approximately, and interestingly enough, in a completely sort of off-the-cuff round table. The round table I organized, it wasn't off the cuff. The comment was off the cuff. Simon Parks confirmed the number that I gave. I said, the number of pure reptilians that are Draco reptilians and some Sirius B and Orion that are still on planet, that are reptilians, they're not hybrids, is about 120. Of the 120, there are 70 pure blood reptilians that are on planet. The remaining are hybrids, cosmic human and reptilian. And either way they would look a little more reptilian or a little more human, but they're still hybrids. So of pure reptilians are only about 70 left, and they're deep underground. We'll never see them until that moment when the rats leave the woodpile, as a metaphor, and they start coming out and all hell's breaking loose. So you've got the humans that have been capitulating to the hybrids, and the hybrids in many places are in top positions of government, corporations, religions, et cetera, all across the globe, part of the 1% of the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the not so good humans that are still, if you will, feeding and capitulating to the demands of the relatively few reptilians that are still on planet. There used to be tens of thousands of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot to take in, and you're welcome to. Yeah, you're welcome to take this whole experience, this whole conversation we're having, and break it in two if you want to. If you just want to focus on this part, you know. Like,
I know. There's just so much. So much.
I do. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, how would you break it down? I mean, so you have those few reptilians, pure blood, purebred reptilians,
deep underground in their own layers, so to speak.
And then how are they communicating with the 1% of the 1%? So who, like the Rothschilds and that group, and then they then control.
And they're right. They control the other 99%.
Right.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And yeah, it is. And the, if you will, the last gasp attempt of control of the humans of the developed world, part of it is this whole COVID thing, which is sooner or later going to run its course in terms of effectively imbuing fear into the population. Sooner or later, it's going to run its course because there are enough physicians that are speaking out. It's like, oh yeah, we've got this cure and we've got that cure, and we're finding out how to treat it. And no matter what the mainstream media is pitching, the numbers are dying. Sorry, the number of people dying is on a definite downward slope.
Yeah, people are getting better.
People are getting better. There's still a lot of fear and trepidation on the part of a lot of people who have been programmed upside down and sideways. About how virulent this thing and how dangerous it is, and you have to keep your 6 feet and all of that. It's all about fear, programming fear, and more programming.
Yeah. We were talking before, and you were saying that the doctors you've talked to equate it to a bad respiratory,
That's right.
Disease state.
And there's apparently a physician in the greater Dallas area who's treated X number of patients since March, and he's having 100% cure rate. And he's simply treating them. They're the nebulizers that kids and adults use, right? He's treating them essentially with those nebulizers, and the generic name is called budesonide. And people are already getting treated using that generic drug for asthma problems. So it's respiratory. If it's a bad respiratory disease, ultimately this is what he's using to treat his patients. And he gave the story about this woman who is actually dying from cancer, and they pretty much got rid of the COVID thing in about 2.5 weeks. All done, finished. COVID's no longer an issue for her. She's back at work. She's still getting her cancer treatments, but the COVID thing, gone.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
it's just I saw something this morning that said so many states are constantly in this state of emergency, and I feel like it's just to get federal money, so they keep people in fear. California is a great example of that. I was born and raised in California, but right now you have Governor Newsom, who is constantly in this state of emergency, this state of fear with people. And it's so heartbreaking. My family's there still, and they're constantly, following the protocol because that's what they're told to do.
That's what they're told. March like good little soldiers.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah,
if not, you could get cited, you could get fined. You know, there's so many consequences that are not good if you don't. However, there are 2 counties in California, I'm told, that are conservative. The county I grew up in, Placer County, and then Orange County, who are not taking it. They're like, no. In fact, there's a sheriff.
Oh yeah, or Irvine, Orange County, decidedly Republican. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then Placer County up near Tahoe,
Yes.
there's a sheriff there who said, oh no, we're not going to take those directives. We're going to have gyms stay open, stores stay open. So, you know, there are people who are just saying no.
That happened recently here. You know, this is the first, I've traveled through Texas before, but this is the first time I've lived for any amount of time in Texas. And there is, I don't remember his exact title, but he's somebody who said to the governor, now it's been interesting, I can tell you a long story, but the governor recently said, y'all must wear masks. That was his statement. You know, but in the back room, it's all about, all right, we'll capitulate to the federal government for a while because they're telling us we're not going to fund you unless you, you know, send out these mandates to your people.
Right.
And the other thing is, about a month ago, right after Memorial Day weekend, the state of Texas, for the most part, pretty much had less of an issue until they changed the reporting method about 2 weeks ago. This is with the 11th, so somewhere like the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. And I know about this because I read the article that came from the state of Texas, if you will, the health department. And the first, I don't know, page and a half paragraphs went blah, 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 blah. And at the very end it said, and those patients who are in the healthcare system who currently have an unknown diagnosis or a non-specific diagnosis, and you know what these words mean because we both came from the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
Will be assigned a diagnosis of COVID.
Oh yeah, the CPT code will be.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we'll say, right, thank you. The CPT code will say COVID.
Yeah.
So you have in mass, all of a sudden, hundreds, if not thousands of people who had unknown or undetermined diagnosis, now their diagnosis is COVID, and the state gets more money.
I was just gonna say, which means more federal money.
Right, more federal money. Right.
It's this game, you know?
So recently, so the government, so 2 things happened. Soon after, so Memorial Day weekend and the next weekend after, there are a whole bunch of people in an area northeast of here called Canyon Lake. And Canyon Lake is like the size of a small inland sea. People are in their boats and they're water skiing and they're in their bathing suits and they're out drinking, having a good old time. And a whole bunch of neurotic people went, no, 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 the rest of the country is surviving. You cannot be out there having fun. You cannot be out in public in the lakes. And so the first mandate that came down was, it's going to be July 4th weekend. We're closing the lakes and the rivers and no canoeing and no gathering boats and no having fun.
Oh my God.
That's what that deal was about. Because a couple thousand people in Canyon Lake were like, screw, there's no disease up here. We're going to have a good time.
I know.
That's how. Now that decidedly doesn't mean that places like Houston and LA and deep in Atlanta and other cities are having problems, because they are.
Right.
But up here in the country.
Yeah. Here it's as if it doesn't exist.
And for us, I'm seeing 3 masks out of 35 or 40 people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Barely 10%. And usually they are people in their late 70s, a husband and wife kind of bent over, prototypically. And the only other group that I'm seeing are people in OR greens or med greens that are nurses, and they've come into a store or something, and they're in their, that's all I'm seeing.
Yeah. Now, I mean, could you imagine if the people who actually had COVID got the prescription that your doctor friend is giving and they got better, then places like California wouldn't need all those ventilators They wouldn't need all the things that they need. They wouldn't be getting kickbacks.
That's
You know,
right.
they're getting kickbacks from the ventilators. They're getting kickbacks for, you know, people with the CPT code of COVID.
COVID.
So
Well said. That's right.
it's this whole game, you know? So could you imagine if we totally flattened the curve with this prescription,
Right.
the fear went down. Oh, but no.
No, we got to keep the fear game going. So it's going to run its course. And just like, and you remember before, so, you know, we went through the 2000s and then we went through the 2010s. Gulf War I, Gulf War II, Iraq, Afghanistan, that whole mess, right? Well, none of our troops are overseas fighting a war. It's this, think about it. So that thing's done. And during that time also, from mainstream, and you were there because you lived it, from a mainstream news media perspective, about a month and a half or 2 months would go by and there would be a new shooting. These people in Atlanta, these people in Orlando, these people in Las Vegas, these people in Colorado. And if you rewind that tape, back in the tape days, you rewind the tape, it's going to go to Columbine.
Yeah.
Back in 1990, whatever. And those things have been going on. Deep state sponsored soldiers that were never deprogrammed, that are sleepers. This has been going on. Yeah, I know you're.
Yeah.
It's been going on since Columbine.
Yeah.
Like every month and a half to 2 months. Oh, it's quiet. We can't let the people that are asleep, the sheeple, we can't let them stay asleep. We got to keep them in fear. Time for another shooting.
Okay, so my audience is going to go, but what about that kid at Marjorie Stoneman? He wasn't a soldier. However, you have to keep in mind the super soldier program. They take kids at a young age, often from military families, and they start programming them at young ages. And if you look at that kid's YouTube channel, you will start hearing a very unique script that he recites. And it's very military. And it's almost as if he was being programmed to say that over and over. Because then you get footage of him after the shooting and he's like, wait, what just happened, you know, like as if it's turned off. So like if you look at like movies like Manchurian Candidate, for instance,
that's right,
you will see them turn on and turn off as soon as they hit the target, as soon as they are done with the mission. So it's that shift. And oftentimes you see people on death row who they're like, that wasn't me who you know, whatever did whatever. It's this shift of whatever programming or something.
Yeah, there'll be a phone call and somebody go, ellipsis, quantum, you know, whatever the word is.
The word is. Yep. So I am with you. I honestly, I haven't heard anybody confirm that, Tolec. I thought, because I've been thinking that is what the downloads have been telling me. And you were the first person to actually confirm that for me. So thank you.
It's all been about the deep state doing as much as they can to keep the masses in fear and in control.
Yeah.
And this decidedly not global pandemic is just another way on this, if you will, on the stairs of how can we keep the masses further in fear and further controlled. Because they're losing control. They know that they're losing control. So if they believe they're losing control, then they're going to ramp up the fear machine. And what better to do it? What a better way to do it than a global pandemic?
Right.
I mean, and its execution, it's brilliant. It's sick, but it's brilliant.
I know. I mean, really, it is so orchestrated. I mean, first wave, second wave, you know.
Second wave being discussed even before we're in like the 5th week of the first wave.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Isn't that insane?
It's so high. So I'm not exactly sure what's coming next, but
I was just going to ask you, have you gotten any intel with what's next?
We're going to get through the heat of the summer, and the riots in the cities are going to get worse. And it's going to get, Donna and I were talking about this the other day. sometime like after my conference, sometime in mid-October-ish, it's going to get explosive. The big cities are going to be full out mess. Protesters, army, by any name, army out.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a mess.
Let's talk about those protests for a second. So, you know, people like my daughter, she is all for Black Lives Matter, and I believe her heart is in the right place. She has so much love. She has so much compassion. Where I have an issue is that I believe there are agents, dark forces, who have infiltrated that movement so deep, and they have orchestrated things where the people who have that love and compassion and who want change, they're following these directives from these agents, these dark forces, often from, you know, people like George Soros, or people who have infiltrated some of the agencies.
Right, or whoever is funding some of those, if essentially in U.S. terrorists who are disenfranchised, who are not happy, who are pissed off. I heard, I forget who I was speaking with, honestly, but it was somebody like you who'd been in the news business for a long time. And he said, how is it that in some of these first, we're taking a stand, you know, we're not going to allow this anymore in some major cities, that there were, by other words, skids or pallets of bricks dropped in place, ready to go.
Exactly.
To throw bricks at people. I mean, that's a well-funded, well-organized effort. Somebody is supplying arms, bricks, and whatever else they're using.
Yeah.
But to the topic of Black Lives Matter, I would say to anybody, if Black represents a race of people, then Black Lives Matter, Yellow Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, Red Lives Matter, all life matters. All life matters. And typically, if somebody says Black Lives Matter, then the opposite is, oh, well, then white people don't care. Which sets, and that's what they're trying to do. It's more about the antagonism. Yeah, it's let's, you know, that we have Democrats and Republicans who are really pissed off at each other now. Well, let's find another way to divide people. We'll divide them into black and white.
Yeah, yeah.
You got the Red Sox and the Yankees. I mean, it's division. And set them apart against each other. Or, you know, the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants. Yeah, let's have a war.
Exactly. I just think it's another way for polarization and divisiveness. But I will say, I absolutely have the backs of those loving hearts who do want change, you know, and who do want unity, who do want love and Christ consciousness. Absolutely. But to me, it's not through divisive means.
No.
In fact, I love Mother Teresa's sentiments when she says, you know, invite me to a peace rally, but don't invite me to like a war on drugs or a war on this or that, because it just, in those semantics, you're dividing, you know, there's polarization in that.
It's just a New Year's, this is 20. I think it was New Year's of 1819. Yeah, it was. I was the guest of, if you will, a colleague of yours, Alexis Brooks, whose radio and television show is Higher Journeys. Okay, so Alexis and her husband live in the greater Concord, Lexington, Massachusetts area, somewhere up there. And I was already visiting with other people in Massachusetts that weekend, and so I'm like, yeah, of course I'll come to your New Year's Eve party. Here's the point of the story. There were probably at peak about 24, 25 people in her home. You know, and like any parties, you know, we're shifting between the living room and the family room and the kitchen and all these conversations going on. I lost track of the number of people from Syria, Lebanon, Africa, Israel, the US, Canada, France. Only 24 people at this party. There wasn't one issue among us. We were all having a wonderful time interacting with each other. And I said in a moment, I said, look at all of us. Look at the diversity in this one house, in this room.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great. We're like, cheers, our glasses of wine or champagne, whatever else. It can be this easy, and here's to us as a human race, if we can, if we as the greater bulk of programmed humans can ever get beyond the programming and say, we can choose to live lives in harmony and peace with each other. And we do not allow programming. Mainstream media, you're all done. You're fired. Politicians that are way, way left and way, way right, you're fired. We need to regroup on our own and not allow programming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a recommendation. But as I go back to that night, we had so much fun. There wasn't one issue there. All those people sitting there having a great time.
I know. I love the diversity, the cultures, the different languages of the world. It's just, it brings me joy, knowing the different lenses and perspectives that people have, because I feel like it allows more creativity to solve various issues.
Because then people are they're listening. They're listening. They're speaking. They're collaborating. They're trying to figure out.
Yes.
To do next. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's more collaboration, like you said, and I think that's the beauty of diversity. So it's wonderful. This has been so fun, Tolec.
It's been great. Thank you.
It's run the gamut of just topics, and I love it.
It's been good.
Yeah, let's touch upon one last thing, though, and that is the Transformational Shift Conference, and that is coming up. It's September 25th through the 27th?
25th through the 27th.
Okay.
And it's going to be held in the Dancing Bear Ranch Community Overlook Event Center. And if people want to get a sense for what that looks like, they can go to the 2020 Wopila Conference button on my Transformational Shift Events page to read all the details about the conference. They can go to the Andromeda Council website, andromedacouncil.com website, on the upper left-hand side, and see all of the images and all the things that I say about it. But essentially, it's a venue that sits on the top of a hill in the hill country that very much is reminiscent of Tuscany.
It's beautiful.
Because there are Italian cypress, there are juniper, other cypress trees. Out here, it has that feel to it. We're also at the leading edge of the Chihuahua Desert, so we've got agave, prickly pear, century plants. And we've got all of it out here in this spot. And it's up on a hill. It's peace and quiet. It is a private center with a contract between my organization and the private owners of that facility. So it's not a corporate facility. It's not a Hilton. It's not a Hyatt. So no matter what happens, this conference is going to happen. Conference is going to happen. No masks required. Nobody's going to be stopped at the door. People will be exchanging hugs. It's going to be a normal 3 days at one of my conferences.
That's beautiful.
So, and I what I've done is, because of the difficulty of many people's experiences this year, I've kept the early bird pricing in effect through August the 2nd. I've added an additional month, or you can save some money by buying earlier. And like I've done every other year, I also have multiple people. If you got 3 or 4 friends that want to come, the 5th one comes for free. If you have more people, 2 or 3 people come for free. So I provide all sorts of incentives to get people to come together and have a lot of fun. And therefore, the price kind of drops for everyone. So it'll be a lot of fun. We have it will be a very much incredible conference, much like my 2016 conference, where we had half the speakers were Native American or Native of some type. Lakota, Dakota, Cheyenne, Cherokee, another 3 or 4. And the same thing this year. This year of note, we have Mike Teotecha who's a Hopi Kachina storyteller,
Ooh.
which will be wild.
Yeah.
Clifford Mahuti is a Zuni Star Nation elder, and he has a wealth of experiences. Rahilio is a Toltec man who is a shaman, and he plays the Native American flute, and he's been teaching people for years in hogans and in sweat lodges. So we've got, I think, 7 or 8 Native people that'll be speaking this year. And the big thing of note this year is that it's all going to be on one level in the round. We'll all be sitting in the round, no tables, no podium, no PowerPoint presentation, just conversation.
Oh,
Each speaker will speak for like 40, 45 minutes at most, and then bilateral conversation the whole way. So it's going to be much more. Contrary to the fear-induced programming that's going on, this is going to be a very intimate conference, a very, very intimate conference among the people that attend.
I love that.
So you're welcome to join us. Carlos is welcome to join us.
Yes, my cousin Carlos Reynosa.
Yes.
I was telling TOLEC, he's also a Native American flute player and has a beautiful story as well. He's played at many reservations across the country, and he has a very unique story. I hope to have him on Guided at some point.
That would be great. Yeah. And we'll also have Robert Soto, who's the acting chief of the Lipan Apache. I always want to have at least somebody from the local people here in the land that I'm in. So last year we had in Sedona, the local Yavapai Apache people come over. And there was Ron, who was responsible for like 12 children that were singers. And they sang songs for like 2.5 hours.
Oh my goodness. I bet that was beautiful.
So Robert Soto will come over, and he's going to bring some of his people with him. And it's just going to be another amazing event.
Wow.
I feel blessed. I feel blessed to have these experiences and bring these people together.
I was just going to say, well, we are so blessed to have somebody like you to be a facilitator to bring all of these beautiful people together and share their gifts and talents so that we can have that energy and that light and bring us to an increased frequency as well.
Yeah, and that's, the UFO ET topics can be discussed, but that's not the focus of the conference. It's about awakening, growth, embracing each other, embracing diversity, how we can help each other grow, collaborate, all of that. Yeah.
I love it.
So
throughout the heroes.
Thank you for having me and letting me dive into all these topics.
Oh, I loved it. Just my style, where we just cover a ton of topics.
Yeah, we did.
Dialogue and conversation. Well, I hope to have you back, and I hope to see you at the conference, and thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the sunshine and fresh air of Utah.
Yes, and likewise in Texas.
Yes, I will. All right. Thanks again.
You bet. I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.